Mark and Charles, and Mark Schaefer is going to moderate this morning's keynote panel. Please join me in welcoming this morning's panel.
Good morning, intrepid marketers who are here early for the breakfast panel. Most impressive. I'm Mark Schaefer. I'm delighted to be with you here today. I spent most of my career in B2B marketing. I was in marketing for Alcoa for many years. Started my own business about 8 years ago, so I do consulting mostly for big brands. I also teach at Rutgers University, and written a few books. And so I'd like each of our great panels. We've got an amazing, diverse, and very, very interesting panel here. So let's start with you, Chuck.
Okay.
Just tell a little bit introduce yourself and what do you do? And
Sure. Good morning. I'm Chuck Evans. I'm the head of marketing at Bell Helicopter, based right here in Fort Worth. In fact, I've been in aviation marketing for about 25 years, just short of that. One of the unique things I think that I would communicate to everybody about Bell, we serve a number of different segments, both B2B and B2C type markets. We build military machines for the U.S. military and other militaries around the world. We build a large number of civil products, ranging from VIP transport to law enforcement to medevac. Basically anything that you can figure out what to do with the helicopter, people are out there doing it just about every day. So we're learning of new uses for helicopters as our customers continue to take more of these things. Just to give you some scale, we deliver about 200 aircraft a year. It goes up and down, depending on the cycle. It's a global market that we operate in, so we sell about 60% of our products outside of North America. So our market is truly a global one. The way that we go about our sales process and our marketing is it's a direct sales channel. So we don't use distributors. We have a team of about 100 salespeople stationed around the world, and we directly engage our customers and get a lot of feedback that way. So I think we'll talk more about that as we go on. Our social media focus has been really corporate level branding. Because we have so many different segments within our market, the direct messages kind of falls down on the tree where we use social primarily to communicate the brand, communicate the good customer experiences, and then we kind of dig down into each different segment to speak directly to the customers that we're focused on, across the board.
thank you. Mark?
My name is Mark Seguin. I am the CMO for Pop Chips. It's a small independent snack company. We are run and actually produced in Los Angeles. We've been around for about 8 years. I personally have been in the food business most of my whole life, but been at Pop Chips for the last few years. As a small entrepreneurial kind of independent brand, social media is really a place where we really look to play because it's a place where scale is not always as important. So it gives us an opportunity to have a bigger share of voice and really punch above our weight class, really in the digital space.
Good morning. I'm Marilyn Nicholson, Vice President of Marketing for Long John Silver's, and we're based in Louisville, Kentucky. We have 1,000 restaurants and 28 restaurants globally. And I'm really happy to be here today and talk about social media, because it's something that our brand over the last few years has begun to really lean into heavily, and we have a strategic purpose for our social media, and it falls in line with do the fun things fun and take the serious things seriously. So we feel we have a compelling story. We're making some progress, and it's been a great conference, and I enjoyed meeting some of you in the audience today and learning what's happening with your brands as well. So we'll be interested to hear what questions you might have.
Are you going to talk like a pirate?
R. Yesterday was International Talk Like a Pirate Day. Can I get one R from the group? R. Okay, you guys are away. And so social media was extremely active for our brand yesterday, and we had a lot of fun. I told the guys at breakfast that in one of our restaurants in Chattanooga, 4 guys walked in dressed as scurvy dirty dog pirates all the way to the hilt, and they were a barbershop quartet, and they were in the restaurant for a couple of hours singing pirate songs and getting the customers to sing along with them and the crew. So it was just a gift. It was a lot of fun, and so there's a lot of passion around Talk Like a Pirate Day. Bring out your inner pirate.
There you go. I'm Paula Blomquist. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for iMart Express, which is an optic retailer. We have about 200 stores around the country. We're based here in Dallas. Relatively new to the role. I started there earlier this year, and really looking at social media, unfortunately right now, we're very reactive with it because there were platforms set up unattended, and we all know what happens when you throw out a Facebook page or you'll throw out Twitter tweets and nobody's really manning the shop. So I can talk a little bit later about how we've sort of backtracked and how we're now getting more into a positive mode with it. I was previously Chief Marketing Officer for Michael's Arts and Crafts, and that's an amazing social media story over 4 to 5 years, how we built that into actually a revenue generator for the brand. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, and that'd be a great place to start, because you had me captivated this morning about this amazing story of how you use Pinterest as the sales channel, and it really came through social listening and creating a great story out of that with a very special young lady.
That's
that would be a
right.
great example to
Sure.
start the conversation.
Sure. When I had started at Michael's back in 2010, we had no social presence at all. We didn't even have a Facebook page. And we decided for Mother's Day we were going to launch our very first initiative on Facebook. And we went with our current agency, and of course the agency said that they knew what they were doing in terms of building an application online. And the whole premise of the contest was to celebrate your mother and to celebrate Mother's Day and put up her story in terms of how she either crafted things or did your projects when you were a kid or whatever the story would be. And our customers poured their hearts into these stories and photographs and stuff. And about halfway through Mother's Day, the whole application blew up. And people had spent hours and hours and hours pouring their life story onto our site and lost everything. Well, I started drinking very early. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning. It was like, I was the CMO of this
Key lesson.
$4.5
Take
billion.
notes here.
Yeah, $4.5 billion.
This is real life.
life-changing.
This
Christ-
is real life.
Christ-
I made up with it
management.
later in Quebec, but yeah, I thought, I was only maybe 60 days, 90 days into the job. I'm like, I'm dead. $4.5 billion company, I'm dead. We've pissed off Facebook. And people were angry, so all of a sudden, though, they started defending us. And
Oh,
I
nice.
knew that we were going to have something with social media. So, fast forward, millions and millions of followers on all of our channels. But in fact, 4 years ago today, because I got the memory on Facebook, we had decided to open
Open the womb.
because Lord knows I can't remember anything anymore.
Especially in those drinking years.
Exactly, like last night. No. We at Michael's had decided we had a strategic initiative to go into Quebec, and we were going to go in a big way. 8 stores opening on the same day, and we had 100 stores in English-speaking Canada, but not on the other side. So we knew. I don't know if any of you have done business in Quebec region, but it's tricky, and you have to localize the language. You have to, as a retailer, you have to really you just make sure your packaging is right on. You have to work with the government very closely, and we have a spokesperson. We had several spokespeople on the U.S. side of the business that were local crafters. Joanne Pearson. I don't know if you're a crafter, you know her. She was with the brand forever. But we decided to use social media as part of our grand opening strategy to find a very local crafter. So we found, we went out through Pinterest, we went out through Facebook, through Twitter, and we had about 50 women actually send us their portfolio. They made videos. We actually had the local community vote, got them down to about 6. We brought them in for kind of a craft off. We had local personalities actually join and kind of share through their social channels this excitement about Michael's coming into the region and really coming in and hiring. We actually offered a person a full-time job to be our spokesperson. At the end of the day, we hired Micheline, and she is just this beautiful spirit, and she really welcomed us to her and her world, but through her, we were welcomed into the community, and the stores have been since very successful.
That is a fantastic
So,
story, yeah.
Yeah.
Chuck, I want to pick on you, because you and I are like the only two B2B guys here.
All right.
So we've had some really interesting conversations. You were fascinating me about the challenges you have selling into like military applications and to divas at the same time.
Yes.
So how does social work in that world? And yeah, Chuck, I think you just got back from the Hamptons, right?
Yeah, we had we attended an event for high net worth individuals in the Hamptons on Saturday called the Bridge event, and it was basically a collection of let's say $1 million and higher priced automobiles.
Wow.
Really exclusive event, a fantastic crowd. It fit well within our lead generation
Can you drop any
processes.
names? Come on.
Yeah, I
No?
don't think so.
Beyonce? She
No.
probably mentioned me.
Nobody famous. I
No?
would
Okay.
leave it at that. The event itself was fantastic. We put a helicopter there. It is out on multiple different social media sites, the picture of the helicopter. It was just a great event. It allowed us to not only engage these people, but get to know them quite well. So we passed that on to our sales team, and again, we'll have those follow-ups with that direct contact. But what I would also say is, that's been our challenge with the different segments that we have. How do you use one or two social channels to speak to your military customers, to speak to the high net worth individuals, the tourism operators, the police officers, and so on. So it is a challenge, and we've been, I would say, quasi-successful. I think what we tend to fall back on is using social media as not necessarily our main focus for our PR activities, but when you weave that together with the direct contact we have, the trade shows, the social media becomes just a great kind of supporter of the whole campaign. One thing that we do that I really do like, because it's very social media friendly. We have a fleet of demonstration helicopters, 5 of them right now, and they're flying all the time around the world, different places, doing long tours. They tend to stop at trade shows and then they go on. We do have a pretty good following on the progress of these demonstrators around the world. So it's a great thing. Customers go for a ride in the aircraft. We take photos. We show. This past year, we flew up around Mount Everest with 5 people on board.
Wow.
Those things really do kind of grab people, and again, it's a great PR piece for us. But it does tie back into very closely with the customers that we were working with in Nepal.
Yeah, awesome. And Marilyn is a fellow Pittsburgher.
Go Steelers.
Go Steelers.
Sorry,
yeah.
Dallas.
Yeah, isn't it weird? Because I'm a little disoriented right now. Because usually when you say go Steelers, usually the room
People
stands
cheer.
up and cheers.
Yeah. Different crowd.
I'm-
Yeah, all right. Oh, you have to leave. You have to. Where security.
Security. Yeah, so I don't know, because I was really having a great time here. Now, like the vibe of this crowd is like I'm really
Turned hostile.
I'm
didn't it?
disoriented. It's the only thing I can say, because usually there's cheering. Nobody brought their terrible towels. It's amazing.
All
I mean,
right. We'll just have to persevere.
whoa. So you and I, we got to spend some time together yesterday, and you were really doing some amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about how, well, you already gave the pirate example, and how
Yeah.
that's generating content. It's generating stories through
Mm-hmm.
social media. What are some other examples that you're doing with your brand?
Sure. Well, one of the reasons I was interested in this panel was that we were talking about telling stories across different channels and how powerful that can be for brands. And our national brand convention is next week in Louisville. So we'll have a lot of folks descending on us in Louisville, and we'll be sharing a lot of stories out of convention. But leading up to convention, it's actually been a labor of love that started almost a year ago. Sometimes those things just take that much time. But we've been working with an artist, a spoken word artist. We used to call them poets. Now they're spoken word artists. And his name is Steve Connell. He's extremely talented. He's an actor. He's an author. He's a poet. And he's a humanitarian. And he's a really nice guy, really smart guy. And so we teamed up with Steve Connell and David Fichette at Go West in Nashville. They also have an office in LA. But we developed this content around 3 key pillars for our brand, which are very important to us. These are the serious things you take seriously. And those pillars are sustainability and transparency, the qualities of quality, and family and food. And under each of those pillars, we have some very powerful content that we then will pull through later stories. But we developed long form and short form content, and we launched it through social media. Each has their own individual microsite. We can find out more information. And we took the long form content, and people said we were crazy. Nobody wants to look at long term. They'll bail out after, we saw an 8-second life in 8 seconds panel yesterday, and I would have thought maybe so too, but we decided to be brave, and we had a great story to tell. Steve told it in a very compelling way, so we decided we were going to go with it. And then we also did some smaller vignettes with some of those powerful concepts, like, for example, under sustainability, one of the small vignettes is nobody ever marveled at a ceiling or looked at a parking lot in awe. And find out more at LJS Sustainability. And then the same thing with our concept around the qualities of quality. What we realized in today's world is that you can't just be good as a company, you have to do good. And so you have to really have a passion around doing those kinds of things well, and quality and preparation. And we have a great preparation story. And then the third piece was around family and food, and our research tells us that the whole definition of family has just changed so much for many brands, but definitely for our brand. And family's who you're with. It's who you hold in your heart. And so, and nothing brings people together, breaks the ice, and binds you like food. So we have these 3 great pillars and a great brand story. We're 47, almost 50-year-old brand, and we've had a great story, and we just haven't told it in a compelling way. So this particular style enabled us to tell that story. We launched the videos and the campaigns about 2 weeks apart, starting, just a couple, less than 2 months ago. And within 3 weeks, we had over 1 million views. And we have opened up amazing conversations with our consumers. And they are the most interesting thing. And we did some testing, and it proved out. In fact, Mark was a very good example of that. People, when they see the content, don't say, we don't believe that. What they say is, we didn't know that. And so it really opens a very different conversation with people. And a lot of those folks are people who are not our traditional customers at all, on every level. So we've been very impressed by not just the view of the video and the content itself, but the viral nature of it. And people have been sharing it and talking about it, and it's showing up in different spaces. And outside of our QSR and restaurant industry, it's been written about. Several national publications that we as an industry care about, but it's also been written about and shared outside of that in mainstream mobile and digital and communication publications as a strategy. And everyone seems to be really delighted and surprised when they get to the end of that and they find out that the content was from Long John Silver's. So we sent a crew to Alaska. Our product is 100% wild-caught Alaskan cod and pollock. And our crews hung off helicopters. We sent up drones, flew out to our fishing vessels right there in Alaska, the ocean right around Alaska where we catch the fish. Talked to the crews, went into the homes of the fishermen and their families, spent time on the docks, sent our chef up there, Peter Sizik, we have a chef in the kitchen, sent Peter up there up to his arms in fish and seafood. And then we brought that story home and we took it into our restaurants and into the homes of our customers and their families and talked about this American iconic brand and what the brand has meant to people over the years. So it's been a great, wonderful story. Next week, these 3 pieces have been released. Next week, when our franchisees come to our convention, we have a 4th piece. So that video will begin to play at the opening of our convention, and they'll hear Steve, and then Steve's coming out live, and he is going to actually be at convention and do the 4th piece live. So, pretty cool and
you
engaging.
really should check it out because I wrote a book last year called The Content Code. And the idea behind this book is what are the strategies you need to take with your content and with your social engagement to stand out in this world of overwhelming information density. And one of the things I predicted was that we would be seeing new content forms because, blog posts and videos are just, they're a dime a dozen. Well, they're more than a dime a dozen. But the thing I like about this is Marilyn and her company really took a risk. It's basically representing her brand with poetry. It's very poetic and it's almost like a mini
an art
movie.
form.
And it's so unexpected to see this content form, and that's one of the things that makes it stand out. So take a look at that, and I think just being aware of how are brands using content in different ways these days. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. It's a wonderful story. So Mark, now the interesting thing is you're like David against Goliath here. You're an independent snack company going against the big ones, but you're having great success. So how does social media help you in that dynamic, in that world?
Well, for us, it gives us a chance to always be on, talking to our consumers and really sharing our, kind of our vision and our voice, which is really around the idea of freedom to snack. So the idea that you can have something that tastes good and that is good for you in the snack category, we think sort of creates a bit of freedom when it comes to snacking. So most of our digital activity and our social activity is around the idea of freedom to snack. We recently sponsored Melissa Arnault, who did a 50 Peaks challenge where she hiked all 50 of the largest peaks in every state. She was the first woman to climb Mount Everest without oxygen, and she took pop chips up to the top with her, so we got a picture of that and posted it.
That's fantastic.
Which was nice, so sort of tying into that story. I think it's, when we can tie to that message and be, sort of topical and interesting, it works really well. We were talking about that this morning. I think where it becomes challenging, and had this conversation, I'd love to maybe ask everybody a little bit about it, is the idea of, sort of participating in the moment, even if it's off strategy. So if, we Talk Like a Pirate's a good example. We have a competitor who, Pirate's Booty, also one of the smaller snack brands, but they have a fairly small share of voice on social media, much smaller than ours, even though they're a little bit bigger than us in scale. Typically, running a few percentage points of share of voice within our sort of competitive frame, because they're always solving for snack solutions for mom and kids. They're very disciplined about that. If you look at their social media presence, it's always along that path, but it doesn't really track very well with social media because I don't think people are looking necessarily for a lot of those on their website personally. But when they participated in Talk Like a Pirate, they had 20% share of voice within our competitive frame just in a couple of days. So they went really off of strategy, but participated in the moment in a way that was interesting, and it really blew up for them. So we're always struggling with that because we're a brand that's also has a sort of pop culture history, and how do we stay true to our idea of this freedom to snack and be a disciplined marketing message and be consistent, but then also take advantage of the moments in time. one of the cast from Pretty Little Liars posted what we call a pop drop, a sample box that we send out to people, and anybody who gives me a business card will get one. So if you would like to get a sample of Pop Chips, and they posted it on the season finale, and we got millions of impressions and views because they had a huge reach. And so, but that's largely off of that freedom to snack vision, just because because it's another moment in time. So I think it's just interesting in this space trying to find the right opportunities, and then also be, traditional marketing, stay focused on the message.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'd open up to the audience too that I think maybe one of the worst things that ever happened to us as marketers was that damn Oreo thing.
Yes.
Because it was brilliant, right? And then the expectation, you know what I'm talking about, the Oreos at the Super Bowl, the lights went out at the Super Bowl, and Oreo had a team and they made a commercial, and a few minutes later it's okay to dunk in the dark. So now that becomes the bar, right? And everybody says, oh, well, we want to do that too, right? But it's really...
Our CEOs say, we want you to do that too.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, one case study just ruined your life.
Why can't we do that?
Why can't we do that with fish? So, but it is interesting because there are technological challenges, there are organizational challenges, there are legal challenges. So, I'd like, if anybody has any examples of not just listening, monitoring, and responding, but are there any ways that companies are out there? There we go, Deborah. Yeah, go ahead, Deborah. Deborah's from Yahoo.
You want to talk about it? Okay, so I thought I actually was a participant in the Oreo Dunk in the Dark.
Woo-hoo!
And
You're to blame.
And then a follow-up act at JCPenney that we're pretty proud of, which was tweeting with mittens, for those of you who are watching that. So I thought what would be valuable if I sort of told you two of the key success factors that were present in both of those situations, having learned from the Oreo one. So had we not done the brand foundational work, which I'm hearing in most of the dialogue from our panelists, which is really understanding your brand's point of view and culture, then the Oreo brand wouldn't have known how to behave. So prior to, I'm going to put it at least a year prior to, we had been deep in the foundation of the Oreo brand. And that's a brand that thought it was about sharing, which actually was not the brand's truth. The brand's truth was more about innocence in the world, and it understood that it fights for innocence in the world. It's kind of, for those English majors in the room, it's just right there in the cookie, right? It has like the purest little white center protected by two little hard shells, right? So it's just all right there for the taking, so you never forget it. So once the brand knew that its point of view was to like fight hard for innocence in the world and see the world through the eyes of a child, then it would know how to behave in any cultural moment, which is why then what they did during the Super Bowl was very much like the elections. They set up at 360i, they set up, a team on the ground who watched and had a lot of fun watching the game together, but then they knew when to strike. Yeah. And so, we just took a page from that playbook. I mean, that's just what happens. We share learning and experiences. And so for Tweeting with Mittens, again, we had done the foundational work on the JCPenney brand. We understood the brand's point of view in the world. We had an objective to support the Olympics. We literally were trying to move mittens because we had needed to fulfill on a barter deal commitment, because when I came into that, there was not a lot for that brand to do, and so we had to jump on something pure that we could associate the brand to. So again, knowing where your brand sits in the world, knew what our relationship with a brand like the Olympics would be. As you guys know, it's pretty prohibitive to be a ring bearer, and you can't come to that party late. So social media was going to be big for us. And when we found ourselves needing a moment to strike, we felt like our brand should never participate in the Super Bowl, because it's a bit of a hate culture, to be perfectly honest. There's a lot of criticism around advertisers. It's the sideshow to watch. It's a hard place to win. But again, we said, but you never know where lightning could be. And so, same thing. The team was in downtown in Dallas, and they just were all having, beers and watching the game and looking for that moment that made a lot of sense. We had thought about, the reality was, the only thing we had anticipated was it was going to be cold for the game, and you'd want to wear mittens. But you really can't. We thought the irony was we were trying to man social media with mittens. So we were just actually laughing about it. But it was the culture of the Super Bowl that took it someplace else, and it took it to, are you drunk? Are you this? Are you right? So that gave us, the most important thing was we knew how to react, right? Like, so the Snickers brand wanted to get in on the party because everybody was trying to have an Oreo moment. We weren't trying to have an Oreo moment. We were just looking for cheap impressions. And so we basically were like, we knew how to behave with Snickers, you know? You're not yourself, right? Or get some pants with our dialoguing with Kmart. So, like, you just have to know, I think, two things: where your brand sits in its relationship to culture. Like, really go deep in it, though. Do the trend work, have a choiceful point of view. We do a lot of work. It started with the craft teams, and there's some craft folks in the room, might want to talk about it. Really understand what one wave is yours to own, and are you a follower or a leader? Try to find something that you can lead on in culture, and that's like your swim lane. And then know who sets trends in that lane outside of your category. Culture isn't a moment where you're worried about your competition, you're worried about your narrative, things like that. And then have your team operationalized. Like, you have to definitely give them the rights to handle those, Twitter feeds and everything else. You have to have some checks and balances so no one goes too rogue. You got to know where your legal team sits, things like that. But we, Oreo did that, JCPenney did that, and but that's the pre-planning, just like an election team. Sorry to go on for so long, but those were very similar. And every time I've had success in social media, that's what it looks like. So.
Well, Deborah, thank you so much. I think one of the key points you brought up here was the whole role of legal in this environment. And the mantra in social is to be always on and to engage. And I heard almost everyone say here that you're engaging in some way. So how many people have legal as an issue in terms of how they can engage, kind of an ongoing, at least maybe half. So, so maybe we could talk about how are you handling, or how do you come to peace with the legal department and engaging? Mark, you want to start? How is it? I'm guessing it might be easier for you because there's less moving parts.
It is. I mean, we have a fairly straightforward brand proposition, and so for us, and being a small company, it's pretty straightforward. We don't have a lot of legal hurdles. Just don't ask them usually, and it works out pretty good.
Good. Glad to see you're still here.
Yeah. See how long that lasts.
Yeah. And so for brand, I mean, what is the organization? How many do you have a full-time kind of social media person, or?
We do. We have a couple folks on our social media team. So somebody sort of on strategy, and then somebody really posting and monitoring on a day-to-day, and then we have a outside agency that we use for some work as well. But it's really the entire marketing team's responsible for sort of monitoring, engaging. Call it Pop Watch. Everything's got a pop name in the company, but if you're on Pop Watch, you're responsible that day for one of the many social media channels, and sort of keeping an eye on it and reporting back to the team and responding. And everybody's empowered on the team to respond for the brand in real time. So it makes it very fast and very fluid.
Yeah. How about some other examples of?
Well, we have,
how do you come to
I
peace?
shared with you this morning, we have our legal department, in-house counsel, makes it pretty easy. You just walk down the hall or yell if you need them really quickly. But they're really there to help us be stronger and to help us and our team be empowered. And so we have a lot of conversations, and the folks in our organization and our agencies who deal with social media, our PR agencies, the responses, things like that, we pretty much know what that measured step is, and when you need to ladder something up seriously to an executive or legal. So we have some predetermined rules of engagement about that, which gives us a pretty broad playing field then. But one of the things that we found lately, because we started, if you don't like the conversation, change it, right? So we started changing our conversation and the way we talk about the brand. And I think what Deborah had to say was really kind of a philosophy that we're following, kind of know who you are, where you want to go. But we clearly understand that consumers are pretty much in charge of what they want to hear, what they want to say, how they want to engage to a large extent. And what we found out was when we changed our tone, they changed theirs significantly, and they started defending us when people would say or do different things. So not just the haters came out, but then the other guys came out. So we just stood back and said, all right, let's watch this conversation and see how it goes. So we thought that was interesting, and when we started to begin to change those things, Negative sentiment dropped, positive sentiment increased, and we also started, again, in this whole idea of, what people want to hear. We were trying to listen and follow and figure out where those influencers, what they were passionate about, and then loop back to how does our brand fit in that world. So we did, move along those lines. But from a legal standpoint, I think we got a lot of bandwidth and a lot of support and cooperation. And I would, don't tell my legal department if you ever run into them, but they really have a marketing bent. They've been doing it and around it long enough that we really value that partnership, and we do not view that as adversarial, as they keep telling me in Monday morning leadership team meetings, I don't look good in orange. So we're here to help, but they're really great partners, and it's great when you can have that relationship and it's not adversarial.
Now, how do you struggle with this, Chuck? Because you've got the military side and the celebrity side, so.
Yeah. So that is absolutely one of our bigger challenges. And what I would say to it is, it really comes down to, personal relationships, right? So our legal team, we have a fantastic team. We start the conversations by saying, this is what we're hoping to achieve, and, please help us find a way to do it. For us, you have privacy issues all around the world, depending on how you are sharing data. Our lead generation activities, we're very, very, very careful to make sure that we're not breaking local laws anywhere you go in the world. We have ITAR restrictions on some of our products. We actually also, we have a very rigid know your customer process. You can't sell a product like a helicopter to somebody that has any kind of ties to any corruption anywhere in the world. It will come back to get you, and there's constant lawsuits and fines being paid amongst really, all aviation companies have to be very careful with this. So we just have to have a very, very, very tight relationship and take a huge amount of guidance from our legal team.
And that's smart.
Yeah, us too with the medical. If you think about us, we sit in the middle of three very passionate areas. So you've got, retail, retailtainment, optic or medical, and fashion. So, we sort of take the medical and pull that aside a little bit, and then our legal counsel, says you can kind of go for it and build relationship and content and community around our other two pillars. Mm-hmm. So we kind of just, we made a playing field, and we try and just kind of stay within those guidelines.
The last question I'll ask, and then we'll open it up to any questions from the group here, is I'm curious, because we have such different organizations here. Organizationally, how do you learn what's going on with social media? So you've got a team, a couple people or a big team, you've got listening platforms. At your level in the organization, at a CMO kind of level, how does that come up to you, and what's your role in this listening process and turning that into storytelling or enabling the brand or looking for those opportunistic moments?
I think because we're so new at it, and when I got there in January, there were literally 98 Facebook pages live. That was just a pot of negativity. It was store level, it was
So every store basically.
So the first thing we had to do was just shut all of them down. Literally, I just said, take those and shut them down. We worked with Facebook directly and kind of went up with you see like the Papa John's model where, you can go in, you have one corporate page, but you have your individual location pages. I don't know if that's how you guys do it, but we had to take ownership of that because
we did the same thing.
Yeah.
There were, if you think, don't even start at 9, we have 1,000 restaurants, so everybody had an opinion, everybody had a Facebook page, just took them down.
Exactly. And so we, then now I have people responsible. And then we had the Yelp. I don't know if anybody's here from Yelp, but they are not our friends. And they have you by your you-know-whats. And so we had to get that under control and had set up a monitoring and reacting system as well. So all of our systems are now in place. And now it's our strategy. It's like who we are and what we want to say. And we have comms planning. We have an outside partner now that helps us. What I'm trying to do, we have an internal platform called Chemistry, which is a platform set up. It's a social community kind of platform for us to communicate to our stores. So we take our sort of customer-facing communication plan or content plan, and then we try and tie it to communication that we want to send internally. So now I can monitor kind of both. So a great example was 2 weeks ago, I don't know if anybody watched the Stand Up to Cancer telethon. My friend Bradley Cooper and I were hanging out in LA. He's awesome.
He probably said to say hi.
Yeah, exactly, he did. He said, hey, Mark.
BFF.
But anyway, we are a partner, and we held a sales contest, and we actually were able to triple our sales of our Stand Up to Cancer frames during this time period, and whoever sold the most actually came to LA with me and got to go to the telethon and meet, actually we met Tom Hanks, and it was really, we had sales associates from West Virginia and Wichita and Cincinnati. These people had never left those states. But we had, for a month, we had social engagement online to our customers about the cause, but we also had that much energy through the intranet internally, and they were, lots of competition and who's selling what, and showing pictures of customers wearing the frames. So I'm just trying to sit in the middle.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
this internal tool is kind of like a dashboard you can access.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
So we're trying to do it
Was that
both.
built internally?
Yes, it was
Yeah.
built internally.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So we make videos. Every Saturday morning, the stores watch video, some sort of fun. We just launched our educator program. So we actually, the marketing team put on a skit, and now that's kind of going a little viral internally, and now, it's supporting the marketing of the launch of the program outside. So I'm trying to build energy inside through our social channels as well as kind of get it externally.
That's awesome, great. How about the others here? What's kind of the framework of your involvement at that level, and what's going on with those things?
I started with the Henry Ford motto of hire their best people and then get out of their way. So we have a really talented internal team, a lot of passion. So it's their job to really execute the strategy when they have a lot of passion for it. They do a lot of listening. So I feel my role is, we set strategy, but I'm a facilitator. And I want to make sure that everybody has the resources and tools and ability and fewer barriers to be able to do their job effectively. So I kind of start with that. And then in all of our different areas, because we have customer service, we have restaurants. So people have experiences in these restaurants and they have to be dealt with. And whether it's their perception of it, and I might have shared this with a few of you or one or two of you, we have a culture we call BAM, which is believe, apologize, and make it right. And that's a cultural thing with our organization, and it sits on all of our social media platforms. It sits on our voice of the customer work that we do. And so we're about empowering people at that level of occurrence to be able to deal with situations so they don't go viral, they don't escalate. People feel listened to and responded to. So that's something in our organization that we have had to push through the culture entirely from corporate all the way out to our individual franchisees and our infrastructure.
Are you seeing on an ongoing basis sentiment analysis? Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah,
and
so you're in tune with that.
we are completely in tune with that. And where that information comes from, and it comes from a lot of different sources, comes from social media, it comes from our VOC data at the restaurant. We get phone calls at the front desk. So we're dealing with thousands and thousands and thousands of engagement at different levels. Not everything's a crisis. Some things are just incidents. Things happen at restaurants. So, we're plugged in at that level, and we are 90% franchisees in our system. So we're their support mechanism. And one of the reasons we took our Facebook pages down, when we first started doing that, our franchisees said, you can't take our Facebook page down. And we said, when was the last time you monitored it? He says, oh, you have to monitor it?
Right, exactly.
Oh, well, okay, you're right. Let's take it down. You guys worry about it. So we really have the franchisee support and the franchise organization and our franchise leadership to be able to go in and make some of those decisions. You can't execute across that level as broad as that is and as wide and deep if you don't have that everywhere through franchise leadership, corporate leadership, and through our agency and partners that we do work with and internally. So, but what we realized is that if you don't set up an organization that can deal with those things in real time as much as possible, when they occur or as they occur, and have that mentality of believe what people are saying. Just accept that. You don't have to make a judgment about it, whether it was right or wrong. Just accept that they feel that way, so believe it. And then apologize. Everybody, likes to hear sometimes when things happen, I'm sorry you had that experience. And then what can I do to make you feel better about that? So when you empower people to do that, it changes things. So,
Mark, what's your level of involvement?
Because it's such a high percentage of our sort of even budget allocation for a small brand, and also one of our sort of strategic pillars in terms of getting our freedom to snack vision out to our fans. I look at a dashboard from our social media listening platform every morning just to see what's going on, and then I get a weekly update from the social team, and we plan on a monthly basis for the next month in terms of content generation and those type of things. So it's pretty active.
Chuck?
Yeah. So maybe one of the things that's a little different for us is, our customers are not measured in the millions; they're measured in the thousands. In fact, I was looking this morning. I think we have 48,000 followers on Twitter, which probably pales in comparison to most of the companies that are here. The good part about that is being such a small community, we do get a lot of feedback. We get it directly. Every morning we get what amounts to a Google alert update on all the things that are being said about us, through all the social channels. We're actually fairly active in some long-time industry blogs that have. It's amazing how much information these have. There's one that's primarily run by pilots, and I can tell you, in 2012, as we were about to launch a new product, a very, very top secret, project that we were working on. They didn't have any direct access to it, but it was amazing how well these guys were guessing what we were doing. Just very, very rich content. And if we ever want to know what we're doing well or what we're doing poorly, boy, you go to that blog and you'll see it. So we do follow those a lot. Again, because of the size of our industry, that direct voice of customer is it's always there. We get it from our sales team. We get it directly from the customer. So again, it's really, for us, it's about weaving the information that we're getting in and pushing out through social, along with the other channels that we're using, and you tie those together. And I like to think that we have a very good understanding of what our customers know about us, think about us, and how they perceive us.
Thank you. Any questions from the group in our final moments? Yes, sir.
Interested to know from each of you how far out you plan your social media editorial. How far out you plan your social media editorial calendar? I'm sure it varies.
Oh, about a month to 2 months.
we have a two-tiered strategy. We have certain things that we know either seasonally or opportunistically that we need to plan for long-term. So we have a long-term calendar that we lay in. And then we also plan at a quarterly level to tighten it up, and then on a monthly level. So we have that various stage of long view planning, things we need to really be highly prepared for and ready to deal with. And I apologize for my voice. And then those things that we need to do near in. But then we always leave room for those opportunistic things, the things that Deborah was talking about, so that we can be ready to respond to something that we see trending, or we want to maybe goose into a trend a little bit in conversation. So those are the things that we do just day in, day out.
We have a 6-month calendar, and then we once a month, as you know, to sort of short end stuff. So long term, and then monthly.
Okay. For us, I would say it's very similar. We do plan a lot of social media activities around our events that are planned throughout the year. So I can tell you that we look a year out, but it really only starts getting active within about 2 months of the event. Is really what I would say is our tactical horizon.
Yeah. Whenever I work with my customers, we usually have plans that extend a couple of months, but I also encourage them to always look up.
Right, that's right.
Right.
Look up. I had a customer in New Jersey that had this content plan, and there was this legislation that was passed that affected every single one of their customers, and they never said a word about it because it wasn't on their content plan. So you got to look up every once in a while.
Yeah.
We probably have time for one more question. Oh, well, thank you very much to our
Thank
you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for coming out early. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mark, Paula, Marilyn, Mark, and Charles. That was a fantastic panel to kick off this morning. Just a quick reminder.